In the opulent atrium of the wealthy Roman villa, shadows danced an unsettling ballet across the frescoed walls. A storm, brewed by the capricious Jupiter himself, raged outside, the wind banshee howling its fury against the polished marble columns. Young Claudia, barely a woman, huddled beside her ailing grandmother Maya. The air crackled with a tension far more potent than the electrical storm brewing in the heavens. "Tell me again," Nonna Claudia whispered, her voice barely a tremor above the rhythmic pounding of rain against the tiled roof. "Tell me about the Lares and the Penates." Maya, her once vibrant face now etched with worry lines, reached out a gnarled hand, her touch surprisingly firm. "They are the guardians, child," she rasped, her voice the rustle of dry leaves. "The Lares, young and joyous in their depictions, watch over the heart of our home, our family. They keep the hearth warm, the fields fertile, and our ancestors content." Claudia shivered, despite the heat radiating from the central brazier. "And the Penates?" Maya's gaze flickered to the lararium, a small shrine tucked into the alcove, its polished marble gleaming faintly in the flickering lamplight. Two weathered statuettes, the Penates, stood stoic within, their expressions unreadable in the dim glow. "They are the keepers of the pantry, Claudia. They ensure our bellies are full and our larder never runs dry." A sudden, unearthly wail echoed through the villa, piercing the symphonic roar of the storm and sending a jolt of terror through Claudia. It was an unearthly sound, a howl ripped from a throat that never knew life. Maya's grip tightened further, her knuckles white against her weathered skin. "The Lares failed tonight," she muttered, her voice heavy with a dread that chilled Claudia to the bone. "Failed?" How, Claudia whispered, fear constricting her throat. Maya's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "The offerings, stolen. Every scrap of fruit, every hunk of cheese, every loaf of bread from the lararium, gone." Claudia's eyes widened. Stolen offerings meant the Lares were displeased, their protection potentially withdrawn, a terrifying prospect in a world where unseen forces held immense power. But who would dare steal from the sacred lararium? Days turned into a suffocating week. The once vibrant fields surrounding the villa withered, the once verdant crops turning a sickly brown. An invisible hand seemed to have choked the life out of the land itself. Sickness, a silent serpent, slithered through the household, claiming servants and family members alike with its icy touch. The once joyous laughter and lively chatter were replaced by the oppressive weight of fear and despair. One night, as Claudia lay awake, fear a constant companion in the darkness, a faint scraping sound reached her ears. It came from the direction of the lararium. Holding her breath, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs, she tiptoed out of bed, her bare feet silent on the cool mosaic floor. Peeking through a strategically placed mosaic tile, she gasped. A shadowy figure, cloaked and hooded, knelt before the lararium, their back to her. In their gloved hand they clutched a small pouch, bulging with what looked like food. A thief, stealing not just offerings but the very essence of the Lare's power. Outrage and a surge of rebellious spirit filled Claudia. She wouldn't let this desecration continue. Grabbing a heavy bronze oil lamp from a nearby pedestal, Claudia crept closer, the cold marble chilling her bare feet. With a heart-stopping cry, she lunged at the figure, bringing the lamp down with a resounding crash. The figure whirled around with a startled gasp, revealing a face she vaguely recognized: Marcus, a distant relative, his eyes filled with a chilling desperation. The lamp clattered to the floor, its flames extinguished, plunging the alcove into an inky darkness. "Claudia," Marcus hissed, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't understand. The larvae, they threaten us. They demand offerings, threaten to unleash sickness and ruin if we don't appease them." Claudia stumbled back, fear turning her legs to jelly. The larvae, the vengeful spirits of neglected ancestors, were they the ones behind the villa's misfortune? Had the Lares truly abandoned them? We must appease them," Marcus pleaded, desperation twisting his voice. "The Penates, their offerings, they only sustain the living. The larvae, they demand sacrifices, to appease the dead." A terrifying realization dawned on Claudia. The stolen offerings weren't a sign of the Lares' displeasure, but a desperate act of defiance against a far more sinister threat. Marcus, driven by fear, was feeding the very darkness threatened to consume their home. A low growl, guttural and primal, filled the darkness, sending shivers down Claudia's spine. The larvae were here, drawn by the stolen offerings. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but the sight of Marcus, his face contorted in terror, steeled her resolve. "No more offerings," she declared, her voice surprisingly steady in the suffocating darkness. "We fight them, not appease them." Marcus scoffed. "Fight spirits? How? With bronze lamps and empty prayers?" Claudia, fueled by a sudden surge of courage, reached out and grasped the cool marble of the lararium. "With respect," she said, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. "With the knowledge that the Lares haven't abandoned us. They are the guardians, and we are their family. We honor them, not appease vengeful spirits." A tense silence followed, broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain on the roof. Claudia closed her eyes, focusing on the faint warmth emanating from the lararium. She envisioned the Lares as the youthful guardians, their faces etched with concern but not anger. "We offer them our prayers," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "We offer them our determination to overcome this darkness. We show them that the spirit of this household, the spirit of the family, will not be broken." Marcus remained silent, his breathing heavy and erratic. But Claudia felt a shift in the air, a subtle change in the oppressive energy that had filled the room. The low growl faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet. Suddenly, a faint light flickered to life within the lararium. It emanated from the base of the Penance statuettes, a soft golden glow that seemed to pulse with an unseen heartbeat. "Look," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Marcus hesitantly peeked into the alcove. The golden light bathed the lararium in a warm luminescence, revealing a simple clay bowl filled with fresh fruit, untouched. The stolen offerings were gone. A sense of peace, a feeling of protection, washed over Claudia. The Lares had heard their plea. They hadn't abandoned them. In their own way, they had provided a sign, a reassurance that they were still watching over the family. "There's more we can do," Claudia said, her voice gaining strength. "We can cleanse the house, appease the Lares with proper offerings, and show them that we are worthy of their protection." Marcus, his fear replaced by a flicker of hope, nodded slowly. "I will help you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Together, they stepped out of the darkness, the storm outside still raging but seeming less threatening. The fight wasn't over. The larvae may still lurk in the shadows, but with the Lares by their side and a newfound fire in their hearts, Claudia and Marcus were no longer afraid. They would face the darkness, not with fear and offerings, but with courage and the unwavering spirit of their family.